Well, I'll tell you, Charles, Boston Legal is not a show that I'm familiar with, but Boston Illegal, and even some of them are from Chicago, Washington, D.C. Illegal, New York Illegal, all over the place.
It's fantastic. Again, art department starts 2020 on a roll here. We do need to remember that B-Rock spent some time in Boston at Harvard Law School.
Oh, right. I thought he didn't go there, though.
That's Columbia.
Ah. Now, Charles, I must say, you're looking exceptionally sharp today, and it's not just the Yale sweater and tie and all that. The show is now being delivered to our viewers with 50% increase in resolution and twice the normal bit rate.
Yeah, when you told me that the first time, I wondered if that's a good idea. Maybe I should be more blurry.
No, this is a good thing. But this is, technology marching on, and hopefully people are enjoying the show at an even higher level than they were previously.
That's great, Jason.
Yeah.
That's great.
And there's a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, people are very concerned about this article in the WAPO. I've come to calling it WAPO about,
We'll cover that.
We'll get into it in some depth, I'm sure. But this is our 200th episode, Charles.
I know. I mean, it's only yesterday that we started this in June of 2017 from that.
I was going to put on a tuxedo, but I ran out of time. Should I reveal what we had initially planned as our special, or should we keep that confidential top secret?
It's up to you, Jason.
We'll keep it
All right.
on a lid on it for now. But we did have a special show planned, but for a variety of...
Oh, right. Let's keep that one on definitely on the down low.
Keep a lid. Yeah, that's what I thought you would want to do. So where would you like to begin today, Charles?
Well, why don't we just spend a few seconds on the slide? I mean, it really is a miracle to me, Jason, how you put this together, these images together. I mean, the picture of Bill never disappoints. and Comey is, he comes across, in a picture, he looks like a choir boy.
Right.
But not the right kind of choir boy.
I don't know what choir he's singing.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, Hillary, that's just not a lovable face.
Yeah.
And your man, Ray, I just, ever since I first encountered Sidney Powell and I read her book in which Ray figures as really
a villain,
a total villain, I was gobsmacked, I suppose is the word people use, to learn that Sessions had and Trump had decided to appoint Ray to succeed. I guess it was acting director McCabe.
Oh, yeah.
It just made no sense to me. I mean, you pick anybody else. I mean, almost pick Adam Schiff before you pick this guy. I mean, it just didn't make any sense. And now Ray has been twisting in the wind, in my opinion, making bad decision after bad decision, fighting, for example, Tom Fitton and others trying to get information that I think we are owed now from years ago. I don't understand why Christopher Wray is still in the job. And I would actually like to see Donald Trump
fire him.
Yeah, Comey him. Let him go on a business trip, and you get Director Wray telling us you can't go back on the plane.
Yeah.
No more snakes on that plane.
Yeah.
So, and then when you get
snakes on the plane,
you get to Obama, and I love, it's a sad commentary, I think, on our educational system and on the state of play here in America, that somebody, the not so merry bouffant John Kerry could be quoted in the last 24 hours going back over this absurd argument that the Obama presidency was scandal-free.
Yeah.
Really?
They're trying to sell that hard.
I mean, that, and who are you selling that to? I mean, you're going back to, you're going up to the bars around Yankee Stadium at 3 o'clock in the morning to talk to the people who've had 15 drinks since midnight and trying to go, that sounds good. Can I have another? I mean,
15 drinks at Yankee Stadium, that's the cost of a mortgage, Charles.
I'm talking about the bars near Yankee Stadium. Those real rough and tumble bars. But the art department has put this together. It's, again, where our cup is overflowing here with the bounteous posters that need to be
for the first show right after your birthday, Charles, we had to do something special. And there's actually a number of upgrades. A lot of our viewers are noticing that the 1080p resolution is looking great. And the other thing that we've done, Charles, is that we now have a full 24-bit audio pipeline, and we've eliminated some of the noise that was previously present. Spoke to some friends of mine in Hollywood, a sound engineer, old friend of mine who works for a very famous sound company that I won't mention.
All right.
Everybody approves of what we've done here with the
Well
sound,
done.
so.
The sound department, the audio department, the video department, the art department.
Technical upgrades for 2020, Charles, so people can have clear vision. Some people are telling me that it's not looking as sharp as it used to. So the thing is, if people have slow internet connections, what's going to happen now is YouTube is going to bump them down to a lower resolution. So people can click on the little gear in the lower right-hand corner and adjust the resolution with YouTube. But for people who are sitting on fat pipes and giant screen TVs and all the wonderful things that we can pump out of those slave factories in China that people have in their house, like a $3 TV that fills the wall,
Yeah.
at least we can enjoy higher resolution.
Very well done, sir.
Thank you.
Very well done, sir.
So should we dive into the slides, would you say, Charles?
I think that's a good idea.
Good time to do that, right?
So when I first got involved exposing fraud, which was really in 2007, I came out of a world, that is to say the business world and the investment world, finance world, where the people I was working with took laws seriously and took the SEC seriously, took the idea of being audited as something that they didn't want to see happen, nor the idea of the justice system going after you. So it came kind of as a major league eye-opener to see General Electric in the end for what I believe it has been proven to be, and that is a hopelessly corrupt, mismanaged organization whose value since I got involved looking at it has been destroyed, fundamentally destroyed as the market rip-roared up. So I wouldn't have signed on to the theory that it made sense to consider whether our own government might be corrupt, given my experience at the fringes of dealing with government in business. But now, now that we've done this is our 200th show, and we look over the ground covered and trod upon, frankly, by the Bushes and the Clintons and the Obamas, I come away looking at the period 1989 to the present and say it's a disgrace. What we've allowed, we Americans and people around the world have allowed these corrupt politicians and the donors who are willing to pay them off to scoop, at this point, collectively, trillions of dollars off the back of the taxpayers across the political spectrum by leveraging up the American economy and engaging in corrupt scheme after corrupt scheme, using, as it turns out, it would seem, the Clinton Foundation and the Clinton charities, and now the Obama Foundation, maybe the Bush charities and other political charities, as ways to boldly pay politicians off in broad daylight, all the while claiming that they and you are philanthropists. So this has been a long project, and if history is written properly, we're going to look back over this long period. This is now 31 years. That's more than an average generation. Most people say a generation these days is 30 years. So an entire generation, instead of building out the promise of a unipolar world under American leadership, which we could have done in '89, we allowed people like Mark Rich and George Soros and people like them to pull the strings of H.W. Bush and then Clinton and then W. Bush and then Obama. And to the point where when I talk to people and I occasionally give speeches and interact with people, they come to me and they almost try to treat me like a little boy, and they say, well, Charles, we like what you're saying, but you have to understand the system is corrupt. Nothing's ever going to be done about this. You're just, wasting your time. You just have to deal with it. No, we don't. We don't have to deal with this and accept this the way it is. And so I believe, thinking back now to what happened with last weekend, when, of course, you were traveling, but
in the embassy.
Well, what happened if I scroll back to roughly a week ago? I mean, I think I was in my apartment watching reruns of that idiot Chris Wallace and others and other shows talk about Trump had, yes, I'll reluctantly concede that Trump had won a tactical victory by getting rid of Soleimani, but he doesn't have a strategy. He's mentally ill, say the Yale psychiatrists. We're entering World War III. We're in a lot riskier place. We need to impeach him immediately. I mean, that was the tone 7 days ago.
But real quick, Charles, isn't it pretty professionally irresponsible of a psychiatrist to say somebody is mentally ill when they haven't directly examined them?
I believe there's some protocol. It happened after Goldwater, the ad there, where they tried that a long time ago. Yeah, there's a specific prohibition on doing that. You are not to diagnose somebody you haven't
over TV.
You haven't interviewed.
Yeah.
So it's absurd. So a week ago, there was a probability, and frankly, I was nervous that anytime you do something as boldly as Trump did there, in a part of the world that is riven with controversy, long-standing animus, you do run the risk, as happened sadly to the Ukrainian passenger jet, you do run the risk of unintended consequences possibly spiraling out of control, as happened in World War I, as one example. So it was definitely a time to be concerned last week. And Frank, I worried a little bit about you traveling and just flying on an airplane at that time with all that stuff going on. But now, you look at how I'm speaking to various people in countries that we're trying to get and have gotten, I believe, motivated to do something about this if the U.S. won't, and even more if the U.S. does. And to a person, the pundits in country after country, Trump's an idiot, it's World War III, how could you do this? We'll never be able to clean up this mess. And now, what? Nothing. Right? I mean, it's ridiculous. And I do think that what Trump has done so skillfully, in my opinion, he and his people, he has made people like me and others want to see the deep state actually drained. He has made, I think, people stand up and say, we got to punish. We've got to expose this corruption. We've got to root it out, and we've got to punish and hold these people accountable. And he's doing a very good job of that. And he's also, I think, smart to understand. I mean, here's a guy with, quote, no political experience, unlike Pete Buttigieg or somebody like that who spends their entire lives in politics. He's smart enough to understand that when you ask for something more, i.e. a second term, you've got to have accomplishments, demonstrable accomplishments that are undeniable. You have to be able to say, put me back in, coach, because, I've scored 7 touchdowns a game or whatever the statistic might be for Trump. And so if you're going to go in and you're going to take on the CIA and the other 16 three-letter agencies, and you're going to take on the IRS, Department of Justice, and all the corrupt people scattered across the planet but concentrated in Washington, D.C. and New York, you better prepare the ground pretty carefully, which is why, in our own little way, I felt that this was the right approach, what you and I are doing, to lay, and now this is our 200th episode, and I swear, if you had told me, Charles, what I want to do is I'd like you to, for free, do 200 episodes with me, averaging 2 hours, laying this stuff out. I'd say, Jason, yeah, that's a great idea. What's your name again? But honestly, it's been a real pleasure.
Well, likewise.
And especially one of the little tricks I'll now reveal, because we have somebody who thinks that they can, they think they can mess. There's a phrase, and I don't want to use it because there might be young children, but it rhymes with Chuck. Don't with Chuck.
And well, you've used that word a million times.
I'm just, maybe I'll use it later.
Yeah.
But one of the things I did notice in the many FBI files I've read is it seems like people in the FBI and these FBI vault files, they care a lot about the media. They tend to, they see stuff in the media, and they also like to leak to the media. And they say, oh my God, somebody's saying there's a scandal or a problem. We better at least look at it, because it's going to look really pretty bad if, week after week, say twice a week, a bunch of guys put together 200 episodes alleging that there's the biggest fraud in history. And when time comes to actually check and see what we did, a la Huber, we have to say, well, we thought about doing something, but this guy had only exposed the biggest corporate fraud in history, GE. So we didn't think he had any credibility, even though he's been proven right by everybody. So we decided not to look at any of this stuff. And you can now go back, with a real fresh team, and you could say, all right, look, let's go episode by episode, or better, as we'll do in this presentation, let's go article by article that I did and others did with me, and say, all right, here's this article. What'd you do about it at FBI? Here's this article. What'd you do about it at FBI? Did you check this issue? When you cleared, Hillary, and you cleared the Clinton Foundation in 2001 and 2005, did you look at any of this stuff? Did you go back over any of this ground? Did you care about no audits, no nothing? I mean,
did they even watch Hong Kong Screwy?
Yeah, I probably should have.
Better use of the FBI's time.
Right. I mean, you could probably pay Stefan Halper another $1 million to watch all the Sunday with Charles episodes, write a report on it.
Speaking of Stefan Halper, Charles, during the trip to Cambridge with David Hawkins, I had occasion to inform them that he was arrested for smoking crack. They seemed a bit surprised by that news.
Well, that's probably why they hired him.
Yeah, exactly.
Crack addict, even better.
It's part of their crack.
It's part of the crack
staff.
team. That's right.
A crack team over there.
Probably what you have to do to get into this firm, Boston. And by the way, there's some junior partners that aren't on the poster, like Eric Holder and Loretta Lynch.
Yeah.
Many others. So why we key on Boston is we're going to show you in some specific, in some great detail, irrefutable detail, that Boston stands at the center of the Clinton Foundation mess. And why do I say that? Loyal viewers of Sunday with Charles who use their own brains and look at the actual facts know that under U.S. law, and again, I'm not practicing law, but I do know how to read, it is impossible under American law for what is called a formless aggregation, that is to say a loose association where there's no rules, no nothing, to gain tax exemption. That's just not possible. If you want tax exemption under U.S. law, assuming the real rules apply that are on the books and not the Clinton Crooked Initiative rules, you have to form either a corporation, an association, a trust, or a foundation. It can't be sole proprietorship. It can't be an individual. It can't be a bunch of guys sitting around a breakfast table
outside the pizza place with their shots furniture,
right? With a fecal matter detector going beep, beep, beep. It can't be that. It's got to be an actual corporation. So then, when you look at these rules, and evidently there's a reason that Bill had to give back his law license, and Hillary failed the bar exam and gave back her law license. She apparently got her law license resuscitated, or whatever you call it. But I fear the way she did that is by going to the local liquor store and getting that kind of bar license as opposed to a real law license.
But why did Barack and Michelle Obama also give up? It seems like all of these presidential folks are having to relinquish their law licenses.
It really is a big question mark. Now, if we had a serious investigative body in our among the journalists, maybe they would look at stuff like that.
It would ruin everything, Charles.
Yeah, right. So, but when you think about, I don't know how familiar you are with the scandal, the Big Dig in Boston. That's where they had this tunnel
overcharged, and then pieces of it fell on a lady.
Right, but originally was going to be like $3 billion, then it was $8 billion, then it was $20 billion, whatever the number was, and a lot of it disappeared. So we're going to focus today. There's a particularly annoying person whose name we're going to reveal in a second. We're going to focus today on a period after B-Rock became president, while Hillary was Secretary of State, in the 2009, 2010, 2011 period. And we will just destroy the argument that any part of the Clinton Foundation was legitimately organized when it was, quote, reorganized under the Barack Obama presidency. So remember, we've talked about this in the past. There was an MOU signed after Barack was elected, but before he was inaugurated, supposedly dealing with how to run the Clinton Foundation. No mention was made of reorganizing this health thing. They were talking about reorganizing the Clinton Global Initiative. All kinds of representations were made about the status of the Clinton Foundation in that ridiculous memorandum of understanding, which is meaningless, and therefore, one wonders why all these lawyers felt they had to do it in the first place. But what I have come to believe here is what the Clintons and the Obamas and the swamp were letting the wider world know, people who want to get stuff done in this country, people who have assets in this country, people who care about politics, whatever, they were letting the world know that there's a new set of rules, and it's naked power. We're going to allow the Clintons, under Obama, under Eric Holder, under Loretta Lynch, to destroy any semblance of trying to comply with charity law, while at the same time we're going to persecute Tea Party conservatives who were a threat in 2010 and afterwards to the Obama presidency. So we're going to have, over here, you see that if you're on our good side, this would be our left side, we will let you tear up the rules, run roughshod, organization, schmorganization. You don't have to do anything, reporting, accounting, none of that. Not for you. But the Tea Party people, the particularly obnoxious thing they were doing to the Tea Party applicants is they were, first of all, applying the letter of the law and the weight of the regulations to the applications for tax exemption. But beyond that, they were then auditing personally the people who were in the Tea Party and donating to the Tea Party, et cetera. And that has to, it's not this, we can't just let Barr and Durham and other people start the process of investigating in 2015. We have to go right the way back to June of 2008, if not beforehand, to the very beginning.
I'm thinking November 1963 would be a good spot.
We could go there too, eventually. But I'm talking about narrowly to understand the Clinton Foundation stuff. You have to go back to the birth of the Clinton Foundation, the purported birth on October 23, 1997. We've done a lot of that history in prior editions. Today is going to be a more recent focus. Perhaps we could go to the next slide.
Yes.
Though I've gotten many nice compliments from people, and I appreciate there are people now reaching out to me on the street.
Birthday wishes as well.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I'm at an age where we try not to remind ourselves that another one of those things happened. But it is, thank you for that. I appreciate it. People who enjoy Sunday with Charles and Closing In and the other shows that you do, I think they enjoy them because these are shows done properly where the viewing audience has to actually look at these links and go in and study what we've done. And you get a chance to check what I'm saying and what Jason's saying for yourselves. If you think I've made a mistake, you can contact me on my site or on Twitter, or same with Jason.
Or you could just randomly tweet out some false crap.
We'll get to that one. But this is not, I was just, I had the privilege of being on Press TV, which is beamed out to the world from Iran at this momentous occasion where people are massed in the streets across the country and where it seems to me as if the mullahs may actually lose power. My distinguished opponent, who was a very nice professor connected to the current government, speaking from Tehran, was going on and on and on about, the grave damage that was caused, or the majorly damage that was caused by the missiles. And he said,
shot at the U.S. base.
Yeah, and he said, and as we saw just recently on CNN, that proves that, I said, I just waited for a few seconds, and I said, I gave him a nice compliment. I said, one thing, just a small piece of advice is rely on CNN. Relying on CNN is a grave error of judgment. So you don't have to do that with our show.
What did they say to that?
They laughed, actually. But I think he laughed. Probably took down my name. But
Veronica tells us that she knows somebody who was audited for a $20 contribution to the Tea Party.
That's outrageous. It's just you should. That the IRS would waste time trying to chase down $20 and ignore the Clinton Foundation, which is $2 billion plus of ongoing fraud, $100 billion plus if you count affiliates. That you waste time and energy trying to go after somebody for 20. It doesn't make sense, when you look at the
cost the government so much more money.
Right, it's absurd. Unless you value the employee's time at zero, which of course you can't do. It's a government employee. So anyway, this is a program where we try to engage you, the audience. If you would like to help, obviously Jason has got various ways that you can contribute to his operation, and I'd encourage you to do that. It's staying linked to traditional media costs a tremendous amount of money per month. And I would say at least in the news side of life, I've become very dissatisfied with Fox. One American News is not yet as robust as it might be. So I think it's a good thing to try to encourage people like Jason and people emulating Jason by supporting the channel. And I hope you'll do that.
Thank you for that, Charles. Somebody put a comment into the show I did with David Hawkins in Cambridge the other day saying that the truth is always free. And I said, that's true. But buying a plane ticket to fly to England and maintaining all the equipment to record and broadcast it is not. So keep comments like that to yourself and become a sponsor on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And some people have been telling me that they're having a better technical experience with Subscribestar. It seems like a leaner system that is maybe easier for people to use. So if they've been dissatisfied with Patreon for any reason, they can try subscribestar.com.
And so if you want to do or help with this process, we're trying to engage. And when you and I started on this, I forget how many subscribers you had, but it certainly wasn't 89,000. And then another, what is it on the other channel? 14 or so?
It's getting close to 13,000.
13, yeah. So you're well over 100 when you combine the two, assuming there's no overlap, and that's a meaningful number of people. I mean, people tell me that on a nonfiction book, you are doing really well if you sell 50,000 copies of a nonfiction book. I mean, like outstandingly well.
And there's a lot of people making comments that they want to see your book right here. Patricia is saying that she doesn't see a book by Charles on Amazon. Where do I buy it?
I've got to write it first.
Stand by. Yes, exactly.
I will be right. I am writing, but I just this project. My agent is very, very patient. Fortunately, she has many fine authors to work with, including Peter Schweitzer's just out with another book. She's a wonderful lady, and husband and wife team. And what I told her in the very beginning is my interest is actually not in writing a book primarily, but in reforming the system of charity and making sure that these brigands who have enriched themselves unfairly are brought to justice and pay not the ultimate price, but a stiff price for a life of crime. And I feel, in this particular case with the Clintons, now emulated by the Obamas, Bushes, Prince Harry, now with Meghan Markle and the family.
Exit. I like that.
The site.
There's something. Oh, somebody put up a meme where it was Yoko Ono saying, "I broke up the Beatles," and then they showed Meghan Markle saying, "Hold my beer."
Where's my damn sandwich? But so anyway, it would be very helpful to when you encounter people, and somebody was saying to me recently, it's really easy to stand up and criticize Trump, right? Because that's in theory the safe thing to do, particularly in Manhattan. But when you encounter somebody who you like, otherwise who suffers from Trump derangement syndrome, show them one of these episodes. And sit them down, or if you can,
down.
That's right. Bring some good, whatever food they like to eat. If it's kombucha, give them kombucha. If it's a big fat steak, give them that. And then have them watch an episode like this and try to refute it.
I like the idea of going somewhere where the choice of a meal is kombucha or steak. That's two ends of the extreme there.
Steak.
Liquid or beef. Steak.
Anyway.
So
with that, I suppose we could.
Next slide.
Yeah.
Okay. See all this higher resolution. It's even harder to see the mouse.
So we're going to get into this in some considerable depth, but in the first instance, on late Thursday night, so early Friday morning, maybe I forget exactly what time, the WAPU ran with a story that purported to say that, after wasting innumerable dollars, the hand-picked U.S. attorney, John Huber, is it John Huber? Yeah, Huber, whatever, has determined that there's no there as regards to the Clinton Foundation. This story was whipped into a frenzy. I mean, it appeared first on the Washington Post, and right away, the Esquire had a magazine story about it, Vanity Fair had a magazine story. And I looked through this carefully, and I said, oh, wait a minute, okay. First of all, in the United States, the FBI and the Department of Justice are not in the business of exonerating people.
Right.
We don't do that, right? And the question here, just to spoil, we won't ruin the next slide, because I really would like to hammer on the next slide, but the question for anybody who wants to try to defend the theory that Huber has, quote, cleared the Clintons and others who might be prosecuted for whatever crimes I believe have been going on in the Clinton Foundation, we will have to go back over that file. And I assure you that John Durham and his people are going to be going, if they're not already going, over this file. And if Huber, let's think about if Huber were doing his job, who do you think he might have called or had somebody called to ask about the Clinton Foundation? I mean, other than maybe me. Now, I haven't been contacted by Huber.
Right.
Larry Doyle and Whitey Monahan went down to Washington, D.C., said in the hearing that they had provided information, thousands of pages of incriminating documents to Huber's staff, and Huber's staff lost it 3 times.
Oops.
Right, and never bothered to speak to them.
They're keeping it in the same place as all the Jeffrey Epstein video footage.
Yeah, and all the missing Hillary emails.
Yeah.
So to stand up and think at this day and age that, I mean, I think the Hillary Clinton plan is, what we're going to do now is we'll destroy Biden, Warren's destroying herself, Buttigieg is too busy with Cub Scouts, Mike Bloomberg has got 45 people showing at his latest rally after spending $150 million on his campaign. I mean, she's probably thinking this is simple. I didn't have to do any speeching, any debating, nothing. I'll wait till the convention, and
everybody explodes.
And I'll be the nominee, and then I'll just, I'll be the president of the United States. Well, of course, she thinks she's president of the United States now.
Right.
So, but a whole separate set of issues. But when I saw this article, the thing I looked first for was, is there any named source here? And there are no named sources. And you would think in this day and age that the WAPO putting out a story like this, as controversial as it is, with no named sources, is a pretty risky thing to do. So who made that decision? Right? And who is this Devlin Barrett character?
I don't know.
Yeah.
He's focusing on national security and law enforcement.
And lax enforcement.
Yeah. I mean, what kind of focus? There is no law enforcement going on.
Right. So, and this guy looks like he's 16 years old.
Zapatowski, he's the shoe sky man.
Yeah. So anyway, I think this is 6:56 p.m. on the 9th.
I'm surprised it wasn't 3:33.
So if they had wound this thing down a long time ago, why did the story come out earlier? It sure seemed to me as if perhaps people close to the Clintons had been coordinating the press to be able to sell to the people who are incurious, both journalists, the investigative journalists like Jake Tapper and others, that there's nothing to this Clinton Foundation stuff. People need to stop talking about it. Let's get back to doing the people's business. That seems to be what they were trying to do, and I don't think that will end up working very well for them.
No.
So here you have. Let's take somebody who's a logical person that you would have thought Huber might have contacted to try to figure out whether the Uranium One whistleblower had anything to say. And here's the lawyer, Joe DeGenova's wife. Here's the lawyer for the whistleblower tweeting out on my birthday, 7 o'clock in the morning, Huber never contacted Doug Campbell.
Oh, wow.
And they certainly never contacted me, anybody, other than to try to claim that I was, as my wife was dying, literally as she lay dying, they contacted me, the ex-wife, to figure out, whether...
If you spoke to Corsi about Julian Assange.
No, whether I was the person who financed Peter Smith.
Oh, right.
To do all that stuff. They were trying to go down that track, but they won't. And in the meetings, I said, guys, I care about Clinton Foundation fraud. I have a lot of information I could give you. I'll give it to you for free.
And they said no.
Oh, no. Do you know Julian Assange? No. Did you go to London? No. Can we ask you again? Yes. But here, Victoria Tensing is a serious person. She's representing Doug Campbell. She's representing other people who know a lot about this mess. And this guy Huber is so serious about doing something that he did nothing.
Well, that's the thing. The article didn't say that he exonerated her. It said that after, whatever, he found nothing of consequence. And I think you're peeling the onion here, Charles, and revealing that he found nothing of consequence because he didn't look at anything.
He was told that,
other than the Washington Post.
All of the evidence is over here. We want you to focus down in the basement there and see if you found anything. So, and just for a second on the second point, let's contrast the two whistleblowers. Let's contrast Campbell with the person, we won't use his name because we don't want to get in trouble. So Campbell, he accuses the FBI of egregious misconduct. And the FBI immediately outs his name, attacks him in the press, So they attack his character. They say, he was behaved in an erratic fashion or whatever, some health issue, and they don't study this thing at all, right? There's a very serious scandal, I think, the Clinton Foundation, that goes way back. It involves Republicans and Democrats and independents and countries around the world. We're not going to investigate that at all, seriously, but we're going to allow a supposed whistleblower not to release his name, not to release his bona fides, not to explain whether he has any animus against the president, any deep ties to Obama and other people like that. We're going to allow that person, to immediately trigger an impeachment. Right? The contrast is stunning. It's stunning. It's just like the contrast between letting the Clinton Foundation off and attacking the Tea Party. Right? It's the same thing going on. And you have to ask yourself, when we think about beating up Trump,
you sound like Robert De Niro.
Well, what you really should be thinking about when you sit mindlessly and say this is a good thing, Donald Trump may be many things, but he is not financially poor. And he is not, he's rather well connected at this point as President of the United States. If the swamp could do this to the President of the United States, what do you think the swamp can do to average Americans, even wealthy Americans?
It's crushing.
And if we hit this, I don't know if this will work, this link, but this is a link to a lawsuit. I don't know if it'll come up or not. Yeah, there you go. That just was filed on the 7th of January. It's pretty lengthy. It was 59 pages long. So maybe it goes. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know whether this is going to go anywhere. But it's in essence making that argument that you're going after the president in an outrageous way. Somebody needs to pay for this. Maybe there's immunity. You're going after AOC. I love it.
So this is an individual here. This is James Fowler II, who's suing all these members of Congress. What does he allege?
Basically that they're all ganging up at Trump in violation of the law. And I don't know if this lawsuit has any merit or any chance.
I don't know that you can do that, though. What's his standing to sue them, and what's his damages?
Again, I don't know. But I've only put this up not to get into the technical piece of it, but to say, and maybe this is a wingnut. I don't know. But
it sounds like other lawsuits I've seen. But good on him for trying that.
Right. And the point here, just going back into the slides, if we may, is really to make the bigger point that if people can do this to a sitting president of the United States, the people instigating this at this late date have way too much power, in my opinion. And then we have this question of this. Here's a really interesting tweet from this. I don't know who Roscoe Davis is, but I appreciate he tweeted, if it's a male.
Is he the person behind the chicken and waffles?
I don't think so. Got a nice hat though.
Yeah.
But it's a long tweet on Little Rock and what's going on. But I think in order to do this properly, and I believe, judging by the fact that I've seen a lot of FBI files, vault files. When I look at an FBI vault file, I'm not trained to know what should be there that isn't there. But if you take I'm sure there are honest people in the FBI, maybe not in senior levels anymore. But if they were to go back over the ground, looking at what was investigated from 2001 to 5, what was investigated starting January 2016 by Comey's admission and by Horowitz's admission on the Clinton Foundation, and what was suppressed, what lines of inquiry were barred. And there's multiple source reporting, that what happened beginning in January 2016 is, yes, the FBI field offices wanted to go all over the Clinton Foundation, but the Department of Justice attorney said, you do what you want, we're never going to prosecute them. So that's been in multiple books and other reporting. So I think what one needs to do here is go back over this lengthy timeline, the ones we've developed, and objectively come back to the American people and say, this is how the insiders corrupted the FBI. This is what happened. These are the people who played along with the Clintons, fell for this crap. And this idea that a gentleman, David Criss, if you see this Daily Caller story, who was all in while at the FBI or Justice, wherever he was, for going after Carter Page the way they went after Carter Page, that dude is going to go back over and figure out how to reform FISA. My opening position on the FISA court is I don't think we should have one. I think we should. There's got to be a way to do it now in standard courts that are subject to review. If you're going to swear out a warrant against an American, that American should be able to defend his or herself. I mean, this is ridiculous what's been going on for a long time, with the abuses accelerating from September 11th, 2001, now for 19 years. And so this idea, and Trump is actually already tweeting about this, so maybe Chris will not end up being the person who helps figure out how to reform FISA. I mean, if you were a part of something where 17 errors were repeatedly made in a document where you're swearing under penalties of perjury that everything's true, and all of those errors redound to the harm of President Trump, then there's and you're going to sit there with a straight face and say there's no political bias in the FBI. I mean, you need to leave. You need to go work for the Democratic Party. Go work on Hillary Clinton's next campaign or whatever.
Right.
Nothing. I've got no problem with that. But don't try to pretend as a government employee inside the FBI that you're a straight arrow. And
Right.
Don't you dare try to sell the notion that the FISA court will be reformed by this person. I mean, why don't we get Michael Cohen out of prison to do it?
He's too dopey. UFC NHL is telling us that Roscoe is a former Texas Ranger. So
Good man.
my statement was just for the benefit of people who live in Los Angeles and go to that restaurant.
If he's a former Texas Ranger, technically people like that are always Texas Rangers.
Well, but the Texas Rangers, I mean, it's not the U.S. Marshals, right? What is that exactly? I mean, are they law enforcement of some kind?
Tough people,
Right.
I'm told. Yeah.
Chuck Norris.
That's right.
Walker.
So then we get this idea in here that there's yet another, in the Breitbart piece, there's yet another crooked foundation that it was set up in the guise of charity that was jumping all over Trump to instigate this impeachment, and that is, in my view, nakedly partisan. I haven't had a chance yet to study this charity's filings, but I and others who work on this kind of stuff are going to take a close look at this. And it sure seems to me, remember we had that entity that's representing the whistleblower whose name we can't use, whistleblower.org or whatever that thing is. This is yet another one of these things that apparently was immediately brought in as the Mueller thing imploded to try to take a second bite at the apple going against Trump. Right. So we'll be looking into this. See, 1 second. It says, the group is organized as a 501c3 nonprofit and does not plan to disclose its funding sources. Well, tough fucking shit on you. You're not the Clinton Foundation.
You can't do that.
And it started, it said, after this retreat hosted by David Brock, who runs, the
Media Matters.
Yeah, which we've already reported. And of course,
Charles, all these guys are social engineers putting out crap to convince people. That article in the Washington Post was naked social engineering on its face. Whoops, that's not what we wanted to switch to. That was just naked social engineering right on its face to convince people that something is happening which is not.
Right, exactly. Right. So this is something that those who want to help us, let's take a look at this organization and just see how far out of compliance it is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's some bad news here. This Justice press release. Next one down. Not that. Next. Yeah. Now, note well Andrew Kessel, CFO of the Clinton Foundation, and others close to the Clinton Foundation. In BKD and other accounting firms, in this Price Waterhouse and the Cohn Resnick and others of the affiliates, here's something that was going on 2011 to 2014, right? So this is now a trial proceeding surrounding efforts to defraud the IRS from 2011 to 2014. So those smartasses who want to say there's a statute of limitations is run on the Clinton Foundation, you can't go back and get them. Here's the Justice Department going after people, an accountant, Mr. Hansen, an accountant, Mr. Wolf, an accountant, the other people at BKD, for basically defrauding the IRS. Now, I would argue, if I were trying to, I'm not a lawyer, but if I were trying to try this case, I wouldn't do it at first with the massive details. I would simply say, this is a case where former presidents, aspiring presidents, a lot of very powerful people have stood before Arkansas, their home state, multiple U.S. states, and numerous countries around the world, asserting that they were operating a charity in the form of a nonprofit corporation. The opening question I have for you is whether there ever was a nonprofit corporation organized lawfully in Arkansas and operated by the Clinton Foundation at any moment in time. And the answer that I could prove beyond a shadow of a doubt is there never was. So if you never had a corporation, then you clearly never had a charity. And this is the real exercise in why it's taken so long, is think of the number of people in Arkansas across these many states, the IRS, the state equivalents, the foreign governments. Think of the number of people who, quote, missed this, right? It's a lot of people. And they don't want to admit, holy shit, we missed all this. Because it implicates, if you missed this, what else did you miss?
Right.
And why are people paying taxes?
Exactly.
You know, if you can't see this obvious fraud. But here's a case, for those who are naysayers who say they're never going to do anything about it, here's a case where the Justice Department in Massachusetts, Taxachusetts, where the center of the Clinton Foundation fraud, I would argue, is this supposed chai, they're going hell-bent to leather. This guy's convicted, 7-day trial, October 2019, for just $600,000. Only six. That's less than one of Bill's most expensive speeches. Not a single speech that Bill Clinton, or a single side deal, book deal, whatever investment deal that the Clinton family has had while operating these charities, not one of those has ever been fairly disclosed in the Clinton Foundation IRS filings for these charities, either whether they're family charity, the main charity, or all the other charities. And here's the IRS the U.S. attorney in Massachusetts, a Democrat-controlled state, going after this accounting firm, Mr. Hansen, BKD. So I wouldn't rest too easy right now if I were any accountant that had anything to do, any numbers person, and frankly, any lawyer that rendered any legal advice to any part of the Clinton Foundation. I would not be making long-term plans.
Even tigers shouldn't rest easy.
I would definitely not rest easy. So if we go back in, then we have this, this Ringling brother. I remember, I think I may have mentioned this before, but when I was a little kid, I would get these, cards from my grandfather saying, make sure when your parents take you to the Ringling Brothers of Barnum and Bailey Circus that you tell them that, your family's really friendly with the Ringlings. And, and I was like, what? I mean, you got to be kidding me.
Who are you going to tell?
Well, it's true.
But you just walk in the circus and start telling them that?
No. It's out in Montana. Our Montana family was John Ringling liked my great grandfather's setup in a small town in White Sulphur Springs in Montana, and
didn't they close the Ringling Brothers?
Yeah, and the clowns who were working in Ringling Brothers ended up in the mainstream media talking about it. That's why I bring it up. There's a regular supply of clowns, reporting live. This idiot from MSNBC said that Americans had been killed, dozens of Americans had been killed, World War III had been ignited. The next morning, Hillary Clinton tweets out, reasonably early in the morning for her, around 10:30, tweets out, "Good morning," it's a video of her saying, good morning," and underneath it, "I voted for Hillary Clinton," thinking that overnight would have been a disaster, and by comparison, Anyway, the number of clowns that are working in the mainstream media now who think that the rules don't apply to them, and we're all signed up for destroying Trump and exonerating Obama. That's media. That's the program. Don't look at anything else. It's become a clown show, and I frankly don't like clowns.
Well, it's pretty funny to see how Hillary Clinton tries to, fight Trump with her own crafty tweets, but she's terrible at it.
She is really bad. Yeah. So then we have, next one, Sputnik. I've had the pleasure of interacting with somebody called Ekaterina Blinova, who is an historian, trained as an historian, lives in a smaller town, not Moscow or St. Petersburg. But I've done more than 100 articles with her where she sends me questions and I try to answer them. And then she takes portions of my answers and typically weaves them in with other people who have different points of view. And as I say, we've done more than 100 of these. going back to maybe May or thereabouts 2016. And right away, if you recall, when John Solomon was writing about Larry Doyle going to Washington, D.C., there was a story in The Hill about how the Clinton Foundation objected to John Solomon's reporting because John is friendly with me.
What?
I know, it's ridiculous. And that I am a well-known, because it's a disaster for me to appear doing this stuff with Sputnik. And I've had, I went in to CNN on the phone through various introductions. I was on the phone with their top investigative team in Atlanta, gave them chapter and verse, was invited June 2nd to sit down with Jake Tapper, June 2nd, 2016. He said, I was told he's only got 5 to 10 minutes for you. He gave me 45 minutes taping, never used any of it, right? They never did any work. These people who had exposed a smaller cancer charity fraud, $200 million thing, I was saying this is a disaster. They're distributing drugs that are killing people. They're raping and pillaging in Haiti and Africa and other places. And this top guy says, Charles, I got to ask you a question. Why are you so upset about this? I'm like, what gets you upset? I mean, this is pretty damn upsetting.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a person in Bill Clinton who's on the government dole his entire life. That's not good enough for him. He's now got to steal money from charities and brag about it. That's something to be upset about because he's besmirching.
That was Jake Tapper who said, "Why are you upset?"
No, not Jake. Jake Tapper's a suit. It was, It was a guy I think who subsequently left CNN. They had a high, their deep diving investigative unit, right in there with John Huber's going to go there next, I guess.
Diving into an empty pool.
Right.
Hitting their heads.
Yeah. So we just go back. Yeah. So we're very on the Sputnik thing. If you remember, people were not all that. We were nonplussed about Obama drone striking an American citizen.
Right.
Right.
Didn't even barely stay in the news.
Right. It was like, so what?
He liked ISIS. He had an ISIS sticker.
Yeah, exactly. And then we're going to give Obama a pass on drone striking, and imagine Hillary Clinton if she could drone strike people.
Well, how about destroying all of Libya? How about doing nothing when they were, terrorists attacking Benghazi?
Yeah. Or 2009 in Iran, people are ready to rise up. We could have not had this whole mess for 11 years. Anyway, so they're all in for Obama drone striking Americans. But when it comes to Trump drone striking Soleimani, who's a, devil, he's right there, making the places ready for Hillary, Bill, and Chelsea down in hell. I mean, the contrast, again, is stunning. That you could be, look at the same issue and come and say, drone striking an American is okay, but drone striking an Iranian terrorist is not. I mean, it's ridiculous. Then we have this story here, and I put this up for the benefit of somebody we're going to talk about in a second. Yeah, the next one. We've had shows where we've talked about Laureate, and Laureate is a highly leveraged company that is in the for-profit university business, which is illegal in many countries.
What do you mean? I don't know if everybody knows what leveraged means.
Debt. So at the height or depth or whatever you want to say of the 2007 credit crisis, just as it was blowing up, a bunch of Sharpies, Stevie Cohen had to pay $1 billion fine subsequently, Soros, KKR, a bunch of firms decided it was a good idea to band together and borrow a ton of money. The technical legal term for that is a shit ton of money, and billions of dollars, and organize this transaction where they took this network of crazy-ass purported universities around the world, borrowed a ton of money against it, and then saddled this university with a lot of money, a lot of debt, and then tried to make money off the business of charging people who shouldn't really be paying expensive fees to go to this crap university. They got all into that deal. Then in 2010, by May of 2010 or thereabouts, Bill Clinton entered into a 5-year deal, ultimately a 5-year deal, where the Clinton family took $17.6 million out of this pig. Yeah. And in these type of deals, typically the way they work is you sign up to do them and you like to get them out within 5 years. So they did it in August 2007. By 2012, they weren't out, and they needed to get out. So they announced they were going to raise money from the public in an IPO. They couldn't get that done. And then they did a schmuck transaction. There's a find a schmuck, find some idiot to invest in this thing that'll make our investment look good. Who do you get? You turn to Hillary Clinton and the Clintons, and you get the International Finance Corporation, which is part of the World Bank, under the influence of Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State, and they put $150 million into this pig when Wall Street couldn't raise money from institutional investors. That's a transaction on its own, just that one that should be a book. And credit to Peter Schweitzer. He was the one who first put this out there. I don't think he has the same experience going into the filings that I might have from my experience at Wall Street, and I've done that. And that should be a book on its own, just the case study of how Hillary Clinton and under the Obama administration, which was attacking for-profit universities that were competing with Laureate, right? That they would attack competitors of Laureate, but get another pocket of the international globalist swamp to put $150 million investing into the riskiest securities, common equity, of a very risky piece of crap. I mean, and then let Bill Clinton take $17.6 million for part-time work as, quote, chancellor. And then recently we have now Hillary saying she's going to be the chancellor of a university in Northern Ireland. Now, newsflash, Hillary, you may get that position, and you may, and Bill may have lots of good contacts in Ireland. Other people do too. So, you know, the subject of what you've been doing in Ireland, scamming money out of the Irish taxpayer, who's sorely aggrieved at this point, now to get this another laurel in your pocket, don't bank on keeping that position intact for very long. Don't bank on it.
And they're all hooked up with Dennis O'Brien there in Ireland. So,
right. And yeah, that second thing I put up for a person we're going to introduce to you in a minute. But here's Hillary Clinton. This is the kind of stuff she can get away with. This is not, note carefully, this is not in Breitbart. This is not in One American News. This is an NBC News story. If you go down the page a little bit, Jason, it appeared August 23rd, 2016. Okay, Anna Schechter is somebody who contacted me on the whole Peter Smith thing. Maybe, Anna, you need to go back into this and study this laureate thing a lot more carefully, using, say, somebody who understands accounting and how leveraged buyouts are put together. But even Hillary Clinton was blasting for-profit universities. But at the same time, did she give the $17.6 million back? Of course, it's tough to give back spilt Chardonnay. I mean, that's a lot of Chardonnay. But so, and finally on this, before we get into the meat of this
honorable chancellor is what she's going to be nominated.
This is a very interesting statistic. And again, I'm more of a math person than a politics person. Brad Parscale, I guess, or Parscale, however you pronounce it. Parscale. His
father was the CEO of a company I used to do a bunch of work with, and Lee Stranahan used to work for. That's actually part of the way I know Lee Stranahan.
Well, Brad is a smart guy, and there's a thing that should scare opponents of Donald Trump and donors who are thinking about wasting money on the 2020 election. 40% of the people who attended the latest rally in Toledo were not Republicans.
Holy Toledo, Charles.
Exactly. Because what this means is that, you know, when you hear, as I'm sure Hillary will trumpet some new poll, you have to look behind the poll numbers. What percentage of each poll is Republican, inclined to vote, or likely to vote? What is Democrat likely to vote? And what is independent likely to vote? This statistic tells me, don't you show me any of these things that are like 45% Democrat, 45% Republican, and 10% independent. Those are meaningless. There's a large number of Americans who have in the past not voted before. And, you know, yeah, look at this, 22% Democrats and 21% independents. I mean, that should scare the crap out of the Democratic Party. And it wasn't like, you know, 40% of the crowd was throwing fruit at Trump. I mean, there were a few people who were problems, but these were respectful people who showed up to you know, listen from Trump himself. And here's 5,000 people didn't vote in 2016. And that's another thing that I would like to focus on. You know, I didn't vote in 2016.
Will you vote in 2020?
I might.
I think you should. That would be cool.
But I didn't vote because at that time there was a chance that Hillary would win.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be able to say, which was the truth, that my effort was not a political effort.
Nonpartisan.
Yeah. And so I didn't vote.
That's pretty smart.
And, now, and the difference in 2020 is, we're back in 2016, Donald Trump was talking, a lot of smack. I mean, you didn't know that he'd actually be able to. Yeah, he put up buildings all over the place, but he's never, has he ever run a real gigantic organization the size of the American government? No, he hadn't.
You brought this up earlier, and obviously, you're talking about Pete Buttigieg or whatever his name is. Experience is very important, but I remember distinctly when I went out to Los Angeles and first got into doing stuff in 3D, there was a person there who was significantly older than me who was kind of, I think, threatened by my presence in this 3D project. And it came to something where he said to me, "I've been doing this for 30 years. And I thought to myself, you had it wrong 30 years ago and you still have it wrong now. Get the hell out of the way."
Right. But that's fair enough. But, when you go and you say that what you want to do as a real estate developer is, abandon that, keeping a large organization that you have intact, and you want to move to Washington, D.C. and devote yourself to, simultaneously addressing corruption and fixing the excesses of a broken system that have been allowed to fester and metastasize for 24 years. I mean, it's a fair response to say, well, he talks a big game and he's very confident, but he hasn't really done this before, so maybe I won't get on board. Now people are watching and they're saying, here's this guy, he takes a blowtorch, towards his face every day, 24/7.
Is that why he looks so orange?
That's right.
I wish he would just change that. That's the one thing.
But he does that, and nonetheless, look at all that he's gotten accomplished. So
it's been impressive.
We'll rush through the balance of the presentation, but I would like to now introduce you to somebody who is named, I believe, I apologize if I'm not pronouncing this correctly, but I think it might be pronounced Ángel Ureña. If you hit this.
It's actually Spanish for piss poor. I looked it up.
Did you really?
No, I made that up. So this is this thing?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Here he is.
All right. So look, here's this guy I've never met who has taken the trouble to issue this tweet right after the Washington Post story comes out to say, I don't know if that's a threat to say that I'm going to be past tense the day before my birthday, to obsess and lie about the Clinton Foundation. Interesting, Ángel. Interesting. To only do interviews on Russian TV.
Привет, как дела, Charles?
Yeah, dumb shit.
Tell me how slushers.
Dumb shit. I mean, anybody could go on to Google and see that I've been on, many, many different programs around the world, all sorts of different nations, all sorts of controversial topics. And that I started in this crusade to root out fraud, not focused on politics, but focused on a company some would argue was dominated by Republicans, General Electric. So that's kind of stupid. And now my worst sin is to have a close friendship with somebody who no longer works at the Hill, Ángel, just in case you want to get your facts
up to date.
Yeah, check in with the facts from time to time, you might. John Solomon, since when is it an offense for me to have a friendship with John Solomon? Does it mean that because you're friendly, Ángel, with, I don't know,
Bill Clinton?
Yeah, Bill Clinton, taking money from, taking filthy lucre?
How about all the rapes?
The rapes, I brought that up, and actually, I don't know if my responses came up, but in this one, anyway, I responded to him in part, and
Pelosi's bartender, I like that. Well, everyone is asking him to prove his lies, Charles.
Right, and look at, I guess I didn't see these replies until just now.
Well, Charles, may I take a moment to share something with you?
Sure.
Could you put on those headphones for just a second?
Sure.
Because this was of great interest, and I think that the viewers are going to appreciate what we've got to share right here. Let me make sure we got the sound going.
I can hear it.
Yeah. Hey. Angel?
Yes.
How you doing? It's Jason Goodman. I was reading with some interest the tweet that you posted about Charles Ortel. I was wondering if you could tell me exactly what it is that he's lied about with regard to the Clinton Foundation and that stuff you were referring to in the tweet.
Where are you from, Jason?
I'm from New York.
What outlet?
Crowdsource the Truth. I'm sure you know me.
I'm good, man. I got nothing to say to you.
Well, irrespective of that, what did he lie about? Why don't you tell me? If you're going to publicly post that, there must be something that's behind it. Otherwise, you're just making it up.
Have a nice.
Everything Charles has said is true and sourced from public information.
Have a nice day, man.
What are you doing in the Podesta email? You didn't have too much to say, Charles.
Well done. How did you get through them?
Hey,
That's funny.
it's, I've been called the jerky boys of the truth movement, so that was a little bit of that. I mean,
That was funny.
how can the guy come out publicly and accuse you of lying and not back it up? He's just
Yes.
proven in that phone call that he is a hollow, empty liar himself, or he would have said to me specific points that he felt were untruths.
Well, what I would like to point out to Angel is that, assuming he cares about remaining in this country, it is a dangerous thing to be part of a criminal conspiracy and to set yourself out there assuming that the Clintons are always going to be in a position to protect you. I mean, there's some very large financial liabilities, forgetting the criminal liabilities, that attach to running the largest criminal conspiracy ever attempted by former presidents in history. And yeah, you may think you've got everything covered, but then I think we could look at the Post himself and we could say the guy's a bonehead. I mean, I didn't know that you'd done that. It's hilarious.
I did a bit of research on him. He's
Well
definitely
done.
a bonehead. He's like a Washington Heights thug or something.
Yeah. So if we go back then into the slide, let's talk about John Solomon a little bit. Now, John Solomon, unlike Angel, who's got, I say here he's ignorant because he is, and to accuse me of lying, the correct phrase there is Clintoning, not lying. But if we hit this John Solomon link.
Is it this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, this came out on the 1st of October 2018. And here, John is talking in this good article about pages and pages of memos that Huber, by this is 18 we're talking about here. Today we're January 2020. What has Huber done? Looking at these, he didn't talk, step one, when talking about the Clinton Foundation, don't talk to Charles Ortel. Don't talk to Larry.
He was in Little Rock, right?
No, Huber's in Salt Lake. Don't talk to Charles Ortel. Don't talk to Peter Schweitzer. Don't talk to people, John Solomon and others. Certainly don't talk to the whistleblower or the lawyers. They wouldn't want to do that. But here's John Solomon, and if my sin is being friendly with John Solomon, I mean, I don't even want to waste any energy thinking about the people who are in the modern equivalent of Mr. Ureña's Rolodex or contact list.
Well, in preparation for the phone call to Mr. Ureña, I wanted to be sure of who I was dealing with and what he was all about. And I found out quite a lot of interesting things about him, Charles.
What's that?
He is basically over here sending emails and receiving emails with some people that you're going to be very interested to see. There was a guy, Sullivan. Who's the guy, Sullivan?
Jake Sullivan?
Yes, he's CC'd on this. This is the Podesta emails, by the way.
Right.
So our friend Angel is hanging out with some of the most supreme criminals around. Yeah,
and I think he's what the Clintons like to do is they like to get young, impressionable people, promote this. Angel is a person, I think, I don't know if you could pull this up easily, Jason, but he's the person who, when the Epstein story came up, he's the one who tweeted out that Bill Clinton had only been on 4 flight segments or something like that.
Well, how does he know? Was he on the plane as well?
He's Bill Clinton's flack.
What is a flack?
Press guy. I mean, he's in charge of managing Bill Clinton's relationship with the press, which is, doing
a bad job.
Yeah, he's doing a hugely awful job.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I don't really know how to pull that up super quick.
We won't.
We'll
worry
get
about
that for next time. For
yeah.
Sure.
So, without going through each of these stories, Angel, I mean, which you might want to consider doing at some point before you get much more deeply stuck into these issues. And I'll grant you,
doesn't pay him that well. The apartment building he lives in looks like a dump.
That's right.
Zip code ends in 33.
His?
Yes.
There you go. We don't want to necessarily publicize that, but these are just a few stories that were done by a certain person who's now talking. Before Hillary announces, let's see, when did she announce? She announced, I want to say in April of 2015, but there are a number of stories that went out before she announced that get in some considerable depth concerning the flaws that I see and continue to see in the Clinton public filings that have not been corrected. And here is actually, if we could just hit this one, here's a link. I decided that on April 20th, 2015, that we needed to really try to communicate in a way that's different than you can do on the newspaper or whatever, even in a magazine. So if you go down the page a little bit, here's this document, which people might want to read on hell. You might consider reading it, or, if you don't have the attention span to look through more than 20 pages, find somebody who does, and, try to debunk any statement in here.
Oh, he obviously can't, or he would have. I gave him his opportunity.
Of course he can't. He's there down the school of thought. We'll call him a liar, and it will get 20,000 likes to a Hillary Clinton tweet, and then problem solved. So this, though, is much that was in there was written before. Obviously, I had done the amount of work that I've now done, coming on 5 years of looking at this. And no, I'm not obsessing at the Clinton Foundation. FYI, I'm also interested in the Bush Foundations and the Obama Foundation and the donor foundations like the Gates Foundation. I'm interested in reforming charity land to make sure that no one ever again makes a fortune off of charity the way the Clintons have and the Obamas have. And now Prince Harry may want to do that with Meghan Markle. That's not the way you should be able to roll.
Who's trying to do that with Meghan Markle?
Prince Harry.
Oh, right, because they said they're hanging out with the Obamas and doing Netflix deals and
Right,
book deals.
right.
I love it when they say they're gonna struggle to become financially independent. I mean, what?
I know. Well, Meghan is not cheap.
But
sure.
She's an actress. She's got to have more money than the average person. And Harry, even if he left.
Yeah, the problem with, as you know in Hollywood better than I, you can make a lot of money and spend twice what you make and end up broke.
If Prince Harry seriously said, I'm leaving the royal family, I want to endorse Adidas or whatever, $20 million right away.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, right? Certainly could.
Yeah.
He
won't be endorsing Gillette.
What, he doesn't shave?
A scrawny beard looks ridiculous. Anyway, let's go back in. So for On Hell, here is a whole bunch of stuff you might consider reading before you want to debate me. And then let's look right here. Remember, this is On Hell's doing down here. We had the nostrum that came out during the campaign that Hillary Clinton was not being investigated. The review of mishandling was part of a normal, regular security review, and there was no investigation. Here's from the FBI vault, 38 dumps.
It's growing every week.
Yeah, it keeps growing. And it was probably Angel. So Angel probably got his training working under Baghdad Bob during the Iraq War. Remember when our troops went into Baghdad, this guy, the press guy, was there are no American troops in Baghdad. Behind him, there's an American tank heading right for the guy. Angel probably learned how to handle the press from that guy. Here we have 38 dumps so far. We still have information that has not been revealed by Judicial Watch is trying to get more information. They just got a small dump. We don't really know what was in the Anthony Weiner emails, but there's no question that there was a very active investigation that began July 10th, 2015, and that all protestations to the contrary were bold-faced lies. Mm. So, Angel, congratulations. Now you've proven to us you know how to lie. And people who have an interest in educating Angel might consider, and the Clintons might consider taking the trouble of tweeting, one or more of the Sunday with Charles videos, or if you're lazy, just want to tweet in the playlist. It might be fun to fill up his Twitter feed with, people, as many subscribers as you want. Send it to Hillary, send it to Chelsea, send it to Bill, send it to, whoever you want. All of these Sunday with Charles videos. We've got 200 of them.
And especially that one where he's on the phone.
Yeah, I think that would be a good move.
I'll release that as a standalone phone call so that people can tweet it quite easily. I'll tell you more stuff about him offline.
Good. So if we go to the next page. All right, so remember I said this idea of if you're trying to figure out whether you have a charity, you want to check and make sure that it was actually incorporated. And here, the Arkansas code is modified, and supplemented at different times. These are excerpts from the version that was supplemented in 2010. And 2010 is a very important year because that's the year in which a number of these attempted modifications of the Clinton Foundation took place. So there's a section in here, I've given you the link to it, for articles of incorporation generally for a charity. They have to be filed with the circuit court. In the county that these were operating was Pulaski County, that's the way you pronounce it. And I've contacted the circuit court, and so far I've gotten back nothing. No evidence that the Clinton Foundation did what it was required to do here when it reorganized. You have to lay out the purposes for which the corporation is organized. You have to make sure that those are, charitable. And if there are other provisions that you intend to use to run your corporation, you better make sure that they are in the Articles of Incorporation and also that they're not illegal. And then you've got to lay out the number of people on the initial board of directors and their names and addresses. Okay? Then you go through a process. The circuit court's supposed to look at that and say, is this really something we want to stand as a charity? And then if the circuit court approves it, they're supposed to send what are called verified articles of incorporation to the Secretary of State. And they're supposed to be filed. None of this was done. According to the records that I've reviewed and people have reviewed, none of this was done for the main Clinton Foundation, for the Clinton Health Access Initiative, for Alliance for a Healthier Generation, for a number of the Clinton Global Initiative. These are 4 entities that were created, or in theory created, in this 2009, 10, 11 timeframe.
We've got an important question here, Charles, coming from D-Live, actually. X-Rider is saying, are you saying that the Clinton Foundation investigation is not over?
You're not supposed to know, right? I mean, but my suspicion is that it can't be over.
That Washington Post article was just social engineering.
Yeah, I think that's bullshit. I mean, if they had a press conference and they said, Cuba announced, here's the letter, blah, 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 there's none of that. And ordinarily, the way things work is you have an indictment if they're going to go forward. If they reach a decision, a declination they call it, not to prosecute, then if it's a case that has wide public interest, like the first Clinton Foundation investigation,
James Comey makes an idiotic speech.
Well, this is before James. I mean, the one in 2005, they put a file out there, so you can look and see what they did. So I have my doubts. Clearly, somebody in the Justice Department knows what's going on. And my suspicion is that, by the time we got rid of McCabe, Comey was gone or whatever, and Barr came in, the decision was made to put Bull Durham on the case. And if John Durham, is doing his work, then I find it highly unlikely that they would have said, oh yeah, this Clinton Foundation, which continues to fraud away, we're just going to give it a pass.
I think most of our viewers do not trust William Barr. So I remain hopeful that something will be done, but he's definitely a deep state Iran-Contra cover-up artist who was involved in stuff at Ruby Ridge that is not good.
All right. Well, let's keep going.
Yeah.
So, next page. Sorry. All right. So, you have to be, these are excerpts from a publication issued in 1985. There have been more recent ones, but this is a useful one. It's very well written. You've got to be a corporation. And remember, I'm a redist. Anything that's red is bad. So you have to be a corporation, in this case, a validly organized corporation, which no Clinton entity, in my view, was. It has to be, it can't be, as they say, a formless aggregation. And the test for the IRS, normally, of whether your thing is organized or not, is just to look at the Articles of Incorporation, which, if you do, they're plainly out of compliance with Arkansas law. They do not meet the requirements of Arkansas law. And we're talking here about the Articles of Incorporation for Clinton Health Access Initiative and Clinton Global Initiative, which were entities incorporated in 2009, and in theory, entities that received exemption from federal taxation in 2010. Precisely when Lois Lerner and her people and Holder and the IRS were targeting Tea Party conservatives, okay? So the other thing is you have to, in your articles, you've got to limit a regulation, you've got to limit your exempt purposes, your purposes to a limited set of purposes. It can't be, we're going to save the world. It's got to be, very specific things. And you can't fail the organization test, but make it up by your good work. So Bill's saying, we did more good than bad. I mean, that's not the way it works. You're either organized or you're not. If you're not organized, nothing else matters. And Angel, sorry to tell you, you're full of shit. And Hillary, worse, because she tweeted out moments ago that the Justice Department cleared her. You see that?
I did see that. It was ridiculous, and I responded to that.
Yeah, good. So now, a very important point here is that a determination letter, the thing that the IRS gives you when you put in your application, is conditional. It's not like it's a pardon or something that you can do whatever you want. A determination letter merely says, if what you said is true in the application, and if you conform to what you said you're going to do in future, then you are exempt. But if you make a mistake, if you materially change the organization, or if you've lied in the application, the IRS at any time can go back in and say, ooh, we didn't know you were doing this, and then you tear everything up, which is the place I think the Clinton Foundation has been in for 20 plus years. So we go to the next page. All right. Now, there's a firm affectionately known as Beyond Knowing Dick, BKD.
Is that new?
That I would argue, when you look at the record at this point, they need to go out of business. I mean, they have been strenuously trying to protect the Clintons and this mess. They issued a, quote, audit in 2010 concerning 2009 with language in here talking about what they did with the Clinton Health Access Initiative and what they did with the Clinton Global Initiative. Okay, the truth is that this is the text of what they say is true about Chai. This is the text of what they say is true about CGI. The truth is that Chai was never organized lawfully. It didn't have valid articles of incorporation. It didn't, we'll show you in a second, didn't get its bylaws signed until way after it had been done a whole bunch of stuff. It had been operating with no corporate form in the United States beginning in July 2002, and you're not allowed to do that. That's a formless aggregation. It certainly was not, they say here that the old stuff within the Clinton Foundation was put into Chai Inc. on January 1st, 2010. That's impossible. Chai Inc. was not organized by then. But most importantly, the Clinton Foundation continued to control this Chai Inc. During 2009 and afterwards, though the Clinton Foundation had no authority to do anything outside of Little Rock. So this is the text that remains uncorrected in Beyond Knowing Dick's work for 2009 in the Clinton Foundation. Same approach in 2000 with Clinton Global Initiative. And the Clinton Global Initiative, in my mind, is nothing more than an illegal association to promote the welfare of the Clintons and donors to the Clinton Global Initiative. It is not a charity. It was never organized. Their unauthorized activities began in November of 2004. Again, it had not had bylaws signed by January 1st, 2010, nor had they ever registered in New York, where the Clinton Global Initiative was based. Clinton Health Access Initiative was operating in Massachusetts. They didn't do that stuff right. So in this period, really going way back, but certainly in this crucial period, 9, 10, 11, BKD was simultaneously, remember we said it's a bad idea to be the auditor and the tax preparer. And that's really a dangerous thing to do both, especially when you have idiots working on it. But to do for a parent company to use the same firm, as to say the Clinton Foundation out in Little Rock, to use the same firm as an auditor and as a tax preparer, and then have the subsidiaries, the CHI, the CGI, the Alliance for a Healthier Generation, these other things, also, well, not Alliance for a Healthier Generation, CGI and CHI, also use Beyond Knowing Dick for audit and for accounting. That's like you are asking for trouble there.
It's irresponsible.
It's reckless disregard, gross dereliction of duties. So, and this, I think the accounting profession needs to look at this.
And he's the head of the CIPA?
AICPA. He's a big gun at the national organization supervising accountants.
Unbelievable.
So if we go to the next page, we take you in a little bit more depth. I know. This is the question of, is an entity being formed, a charity, is it a successor to another organization? This is a Schedule G, in excerpts from the Schedule G that would have applied in the year where the Chai and New CGI filed for tax exemption. These are some of the questions that they should have answered. Are you a successor? Say yes if you have or will take over the activities of another organization. So New Chai was taking over the activities of the Clinton Foundation with respect to fighting HIV/AIDS. They should have answered yes. They should have filled out the schedule.
But wasn't it taking over for old Chai? I mean, chances are, if your name is exactly the same, but you add New, it's a successor.
Right. No. I'm calling them new and old just for clarity's sake. But my point is, they did not fill out Schedule G, which they should have done. They would have had to explain the tax status of the Clinton Foundation, which was not authorized. They would have had to explain the application in the case of Chai for Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS initiative, where I believe their application was denied by the IRS. They've had problems. Things have been suspended and revoked. They'd have to provide a tremendous amount of specificity here, which they did not provide. This is a material omission. And on the strength of this alone, neither New Chai nor New CGI should ever have been authorized by the IRS. But again, who was controlling that decision? Lois freaking Lerner, right? So before we get off this page, one thing you really have to understand, Angel and Hillary and Bill and others, is that because you got in deep with the globalist swamp, you forgot about the fact that all these academic types who like to write papers bragging about what they've done, and all these government types who like to employ consulting firms evaluating grants, there's a shit ton of documents around the world that are in the public domain that destroy any argument that you were doing this work lawfully. And you can't pull all those documents back, try as you might. All you can hope for is that the surface level idiots are the ones who are going to vote. And I think based on what we saw in, for example, the Toledo rally, that's not the way it's going right now. You've got 20% of that rally are Democrats. You probably have many more people, frankly, went to the Toledo rally, multiples of people went to the Toledo rally, than showed up for Mayor Bloomberg's inaugural shindig with Judge Judy, who's a very famous woman.
Yeah, it's honestly, I think I could have like a Halloween party and more than 45 people would come to that.
Exactly. So if we go to the next page.
Oops.
Remember, this is a timeline people have seen before, but again, Angel, this is for your benefit. I mean, these are this Clinton Health Access Initiative. Bill wrote a book. Perhaps you were still in college or maybe high school in 2007. But Bill wrote a book.
To college?
Good question. Giving. It was published in September, I believe, of 2007, for which he or the family made $6.4 million, in which he bragged about starting this fucking thing in July of 2002. In his own words, right? Going to walk that back, Angel? So he's lying. He lied to his book. I'm just reading what he put down. I mean, he wrote it, got paid for it. The 24th of March, we've explained that Lindsay incorporated this Clinton Foundation without doing it properly. The merger that occurred on December 31st is ridiculous. It doesn't comply with Arkansas law. No part of it was done correctly. Didn't incorporate this New Chai properly. French government, Fabienne will be on next week. We've done several shows on the issue of Unitaid being investigated by the French government for putting money in this pig. And there's a lengthy report, hundreds of pages available. We have, this should actually say the 31st December 2009, Angel Sony put in the application for tax exemptions. Absolutely wrong. They claim that they merged this New Chai with the old operations on January 1st, but on that date, New Chai was not tax exempt. And New Chai waited until the 6th of January to register to do business in the key states of Massachusetts, where all the main headquarters staff were, and Bill Clinton was in New York. They couldn't possibly, you can't go back into time phone hacking your way into putting mergers together when the entities were not lawfully organized on the date in question. It doesn't work that way. And then the bylaws, when you set up, bylaws are what regulate a company's operations. if you don't have signed bylaws, you don't have a corporation, an organized corporation. So they set the thing up on the 29th of September, but they don't, and they tell the government of the Bahamas that they haven't completed their bylaws until the 3rd of February 2010. So in this crucial period, they had no organizational structure. There's no way you could put things together. They get, nonetheless, Lois Lerner, crooked as hell, gives them a determination letter, conditional determination letter on the 15th of March. We have they hold all this disaster off until the November revelation of the disaster, until November 2nd, 2010, and get pummeled by the Tea Party in that election, right? So then they ratchet up attacks against the Tea Party because they realize 2012 is going to be tough. This French court issues a report, which we have provided links to in the past, which eviscerates the Clinton Foundation on the 10th of November 2010. And, what does dopey Andrew Kessel decide to do? Let's set up a new subsidiary illegally in the UK the next year, the 22nd of November 2011, lying to the UK as they did with the parent company. And then to New Zealand, the poor sheep out there, who are sending money into this chai, they provide a different version than that was provided to the Bahamian government of bylaws, same bylaws, which they say were adopted on the 8th of December 2011. So, if what they told the Bahamas is true, this has been a fraud immediately. But if what they told New Zealand is true, it's even a worse fraud, right? That they only adopt bylaws. And these bylaws are meaningful because they confer a lifetime appointment to Bill Clinton as chairman and Andrew Magaziner, what's his name? Ira Magaziner as vice chairman. These are the posts that are conferred on Bill and on Ira grant significant powers to those gentlemen, and I would argue are a proprietary interest. They're an illegal proprietary interest granted by a public charity, which would gut this thing from a legal standpoint. So the question then is, was this operation, New Chai, a successor to any previous operation, right? What would the numbers tell you? These are a lot of words I've thrown at you. Let's look at the next page at some numbers. Okay. These numbers, I rejiggered them, are taken from intentionally omitted portions of audits that were prepared by Beyond Knowing Dick for 2007, 8, and 9, and 2008, 9, and 10 that show the alleged operations of this old chai. And I've just not put all the numbers, but put a few numbers up here. And let's take, they assert that this old chai spent in the 3-year period, 2007, 8, 9, $189 million on direct programs. Now, to put that number in perspective, that's 189% of the amount of money that the Clinton Foundation said they were going to spend building the presidential center. That's the number at the very bottom of that column on the right, 99,970,000. That's in the section of the lease dated March 1st, 2002, lease 3.3A.
Seems remarkably high.
It's absurd that you'd say, we've been doing this thing, to the IRS, we say to Lois Lerner, December 31st, 2009, we're going to fill out an application saying what we're doing with this Clinton Health Access Initiative is not a successor to any previous operation. When they spent $189 million on direct programs for chai, $50 million on salaries. Beyond that, they spent $67 million on consulting, $20 million on travel, $8 million on rent. And why you would need to do this from any place other than Arkansas is beyond me. And then to top it all off, one I love is $72 million on other. I mean, somebody, even if you're Bill Gates, and somebody came to you and said, Bill says, look, I want you to tell me what you did with $400 million I gave you. And you go back to Bill Gates and say, well, here, I spent 189 on programs, and this and that. I spent 72 million on other. No serious business person is going to say, oh, that's okay, sure. 72 million on other than paying consultants? $66 million? I mean, it's absurd. These numbers are absurd. They're gigantic. $405 million spent on predecessor chai, right? And you're going to say in this new application that you're not a successor to anything? And the significance here on hell, because you probably don't know anything about this either, there's a law here, 18 U.S.C. 219, Hillary was a senator at 7, a senator at 8, and Secretary of State at 9. This law applies to her. It's a criminal offense for a public official in the executive, legislative, or judicial branches to be or to act as an agent of a foreign principal. Okay? And Bill Clinton was married to Hillary Clinton at this time, and Bill Clinton was acting as an unregistered agent of many governments around the world in his role at Chai.
Oh, whoops.
Yeah. And so this, of course, fake yapper doesn't want to get into this. CNN, MSNBC, The Times. We don't want to get into this because this would be too embarrassing.
Neither does Angel.
Neither does Angel, of course. He just wants to have another six-pack.
He wants to tweet crap.
Yeah, exactly. So if we go to the next page, let's talk about, okay, so maybe they made a small mistake with Chai. Did they have any problems with the Clinton Global Initiative? The Clinton Global Initiative was registered as a .com, a for-profit entity, in theory, on Whois on the 15th of November 2004. Now that's 3 days before they signed the agreement with the National Archives saying that they would only be a public charity doing work only in Little Rock. Some bright bulb says, well, we don't want to do that. We've got the building built. Now let's set up this Clinton Gab Fest. And he holds the first meeting on the 17th of September. For the hell of it, Jason, let's just look at this press release here.
They're all opening all the way over here, but there we go.
Yeah, here you get a chance to support the Clintons. Let's stop this. Look at this tagline, the nerve of these people. Three Clintons, stand with us. Together we can continue putting people first. These
the
people.
people they're talking about are them, right?
Support our work. I don't think so.
I do want to thank Light Warrior for supporting Crowdsource the Truth too with Super Chat on YouTube.
That's very good. But so here's something, remember, this is an entity, Clinton Global. There's a first annual Clinton Global Initiative meeting happens on September 17th, 2005. Remember, they're going to put in an application now for federal tax exemption in August of 2010, saying that they're not a successor organization to anything. But here's this first meeting, yabba yabba, blabba blabba, all the stuff they claim they're going to do. They've raised $1.25 billion in commitments to action from New York, without registering in New York. The Clinton Foundation was not registered validly in New York. Clinton Global Initiative wasn't. You have the Prime Minister of Norway at this meeting, Mr. Bondevik, Kagame of Rwanda, the Queen of Jordan, the Honorable Al Gore, Kofi Annan, there's the winner, and the President and CEO of Starbucks.
Oh yeah, that's, what's that guy's name? Schultz, Howard Schultz.
Then it was Mr. Jim Donald.
Oh.
And so, Center of American Progress, of course, John Podesta's Podfather is contributing to this thing. So this is just, there's so much in the public domain, and we don't have enough time to go through it all here in Crowdsource the Truth. We will be going through this in the book, of course, however we decide to do it. But here's, the 2005 meeting, plans for the 2006 meeting, where Mike Bloomberg's roped into the meeting. They have this Fortune magazine article, which is absurd, in 2006, selling fairy tales for the Clinton Global Initiative, calling it the most important part of the Clinton Foundation.
Not the IMAX theater, because that's a pretty good part.
And then, right after Bill writes the book, or it releases the book in Giving, they brag about it in 7. They have the 4th meeting in September of 2008. They grift off to Hong Kong, as we talked about last time, in December 2008. And only on 29th July 2010, after all this has happened, only then does the William J. Clinton Foundation attempt to register to operate with the New York Secretary of State. Only then. So all this preceding work, here's Hillary Clinton, who has to give up her law license, fails the bar exam. I would argue it's repugnant to listen to her say that she's standing up for women,
right, when
she stays married to this beast of a husband, who has done despicable things to many people, and especially including Juanita Broderick, and Kathleen Willey, and Kathy Shelton, and Paula Jones, and too many others to name. Here's a former junior senator from New York who's got one charity up in Chappaqua, the main one in Harlem, and elsewhere in New York City, And they don't even bother to try to register in New York until July 29th, 2009. Angel, just FYI, I've checked with the Secretary of State and the office that is, and they have failed to file everything that is required to be filed in New York State. All these fictitious names, Clinton Global Initiative, none of them have been filed in the counties in which they intended to operate here in New York. So they're grossly out of compliance, Angel. Sorry to tell you.
It's a nice photograph, though. You got a good ring light and a nice. This has got to be like an 85 mil lens. It's maybe the same photographer as Imran Awan. They really want to make these guys look good.
So Bruce Lindsay then on the 4th of September 2009. That's Bruce Lindsay's job. His job is to illegally incorporate affiliates of the Clinton Foundation to protect the Clintons. Does that on the 4th of September 2009. So we go to the next page. We have the 5th illegal business development meeting, CGI, on the 14th of September 2009. Then they try to claim that they're going to merge the remnants, the old CGI, into the new CGI on January 1st, 2010. But they don't sign bylaws, and it's only Bruce who does, until August 4th, 2010. They put in on the 9th a grossly misleading and inaccurate false application for tax exemption. Lois Lerner says, that's how I roll, boys. Whatever you want, you get your tax exemption. BKD then issues a false audit, yet another false audit on the 10th of November. And then this economically and financially illiterate CFO, Andrew Kessel, decides it would be a good idea, along with a BKD accountant who's currently at Raymond James, but after BKD, she went and ran the Arkansas Development Finance Authority, a place that is notoriously corrupt. They decide, unlike New Chai, they file a 990, what's called a short period 990 for new CGI for 2009 on November 12th, 2010, which claims in this thing that they have no revenue, no expenses, no nothing, whereas the application for federal tax exemption signed the 9th of August 2010, claims substantial revenues, 20 plus million of expenses in 2009. I mean, this is the team that cannot shoot straight, talk straight, think straight. It is the Clinton, lying foundation. And then, as if that's not enough, they submit a false application to do business in California late on the 25th of February 2011. And then they register with the New York Secretary of State, again, late on the 12th of April 2011, having conducted business in New York when Hillary was a senator starting in 2004 and 5. So, yeah, Angel, I guess, I'm spreading lies according to you. I guess that you're one of these very reliable people, and they're good people to know, people who are always wrong. When you meet somebody who's always wrong, you want to stay real close to that person. You ask them all kinds of questions, particularly about investments, and you'll do famously well. Sure, in real life, he's probably a very decent individual, maybe.
I don't know about that.
But he's been plucked way above his competence level to now try to spin. And what they're trying to do, in my opinion, is they look at the clown show that are the announced challengers in both parties to Donald Trump. Bill Weld comes to mind on the Republican side, but all the Democrats. Bad news beyond Mike Bloomberg's abysmal showing at Judge Judy's party, rollout event, is that the polling amongst African Americans in support of Buttigieg and Bloomberg, there's no support.
Yeah.
So
few people even know who Buttigieg is.
And when the people who really know who he is in that idiotic small town, South Bend, Indiana, they don't like him at all.
That's good when the only people who know you don't like you.
Yeah, you run for president, so you can get out of town.
What caused him to think he could do that?
I don't know. So the bad news on Hell and Hillary and Bill and Chelsea is you decided to play this game, this big boy game, big person game in finance, where you solicited money on false pretenses using the mail across state and international boundaries, and you then subsequently filed reports under penalties of perjury that are false and materially misleading. And you haven't done it even on this presentation. When we went onto the website, they solicited on this show illegally. And maybe they've gotten to a point where they frankly just don't care. And who knows what life expectancies are like for people at this moment in time. They're getting on in years, shopping for their Zimmer frames, and they could have just taken the position that in the end, we all die anyway. So let's just play this game, and by the time people eventually catch up to us, there's not going to be much we can do. We'll try the Harvey Weinstein defense, showing up in a Zimmer frame.
Yeah, right. That didn't work. And then the next move, I think that his genius attorneys, they're trying to get the judge disqualified.
Sure.
I know somebody else who tried to do that. It did not go well.
Yeah, it didn't go well.
Doesn't seem to be something that a judge would respond to. Now, there were a couple, here we go. We've got some late breaking news, Charles, right?
Right.
Where we got that stuff. Some interesting things were happening. So I hope you enjoyed that phone call.
Oh, I loved it, Jason. And I didn't know.
I surprised you with that. Yeah, he didn't know either, which is, people, a million people will write to me and say, you should be nice to him and maybe he would talk to you. No, he won't. Guys like that aren't going to talk to me.
Well, you see, what they do, I know from my prior experience on other channels. Yeah, this is the thing I was referring to. Let's look at this for a second. This week, the Justice Department, the Trump Justice Department, determined that the lies that were peddled about me, her family, and the Clinton family are without merit. Really? Where's the proof of that, Hillary? Where is the proof of that? And let's keep going. The Clinton Foundation in New York has not registered to use that fictitious name. This thing went out at 12:30. Let's just go.
Well, here's my response. That is absolutely not the determination. WAPU said it found nothing of consequence, which was due to deliberately not looking. If you'd like to see copious evidence of your criminality on display, tune in to 3 p.m. today.
That's well done. But just let's contrast, though, for a second. If we go further up, I just want to show you one thing. Yeah, let's look at the metrics. She puts this thing out at 12:30. There are 13,000 retweets and 55,000 likes, right?
Do we know where she is? Is she in New York or is she on the West Coast making that 9:30
a.m.? No, she's in New York.
Peanut.
And by the way, January 12th, 2020 is quite near 10 years after the Haiti earthquake. I forget if it was, I think it is the 12th or thereabouts. And here the same team that raped and pillaged in Haiti has the nerve to put out something like this. Together, we continue putting people first. Yeah, yourselves. And look, it's actually, they're trying to raise money.
Right.
They're trying to create economic opportunity.
Donate today.
Yeah, sure they are.
Wow.
Let's keep going. Got bills to pay here. And then you look at yours, which I think is quite clever. Yours went out 3 hours ago, and you've got 23 retweets and only 94 likes. I mean, how the hell did she get that many?
Well, I think more people have heard of Hillary Clinton than me.
Let's see what the other commentaries are. Here's, whoever Wayne Dunlap is, good on you. Then P resists. I wonder who P resists is.
Forever and ever Trump. But that guy's got 9. I guess probably whoever's looking at Hillary Clinton is more interested in what that guy...
Well, Michael Stern, what does he say? As a former federal prosecutor, was not involved despite the fanfare accusations. Oh boy, Michael Stern, I bet you have no connection at all to the Clinton Foundation. And we have the Princess of Wales. Nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
Oh boy!
See, this is what they have
Look, who's
always
this guy?
done.
Steve A. Van Loer for Congress. That's pretty funny.
Good tweets for sure. But, I mean, to be fair, Charles, this is the method. This is what the Clintons do. They manipulate the investigation, and then when they get the result, they can say, oh, you see, there was an investigation and nothing happened, so therefore we must be innocent.
Right.
But I think that this, they're using the Washington Post to manipulate public opinion, as they frequently do. It's a tool of social engineering. They're using Angel, whatever his name is, as a tool of social engineering. And this is how they do it all the time, right?
It is. But again, the Justice Department is not in the business of exonerating people.
Right.
And yeah, this was, I was thinking you'd hit the PJ Media.
So this is John Kerry claims Obama never had a whiff of a scandal.
And then PJ Media, if you hit that red link.
Where is it?
Further up. Yeah, right there.
Got
You
it.
get the actual.
Let's remind him of some. Fast and Furious, destroying Libya. What were the best ones, Charles?
Oh, well, certainly Benghazi's outrageous. Right. Selling the Senate seat.
Right.
Right.
And Just the Facts Man reminds us that now, starting at 12:31 p.m., Hillary Clinton will say, it's old news.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So, but it's interesting how that Washington Post article is coordinated with Mr. Angel saying that you're lying about something. They're just trying to create a preponderance of information, even if it's false, to get people to think something that is incorrect is correct. Here's the image from the barbecue with Judge Judy. And
that's pathetic.
It's really bad. I mean,
what does he have? He's got a big gulp. Somebody's got a big gulp here.
Oh, that exactly. That soda's going to get you thrown out.
And what was he serving? Maybe the reason nobody went is the food. It looks atrocious. What is it?
Well, I don't know, but yeah, maybe he kicked out all the other people for ordering too big of a soda.
This is really, I mean, is he running for president of the United States or president of the Block Association on East 65th Street or something?
And this girl's like, who is the old guy sitting over there? I thought we were coming here for a barbecue. So I think that was it for the...
Well, yeah, I was going to say, I started to explain that I think the way the Clintons do things, and the way Angel, is accustomed to getting whatever he wants, is they say to, or they let it be known to the various news organizations, at some point you're going to want to have access to either Bill or Hillary or Chelsea. And these, there are many media outlets, and we're going to break news on a regular basis, and Hillary may decide to run again, and we will decide who we favor with an interview and who we punish by keeping you in Siberia. And that's the way they work. And they have ground rules, and you can only ask certain questions. You saw some of that at Barnes & Noble a few times. The way
they kicked Laura out before she even got to the front of the line.
And so that's why Angel can behave the way he behaves, because he knows that they've got all these lamestream media politicians in their pocket. And that's, I can understand how somebody with very little experience, goes from whatever his background is. Maybe he was the kid of a billionaire. I doubt it, but
I don't think so.
Right.
He publishes right on his Twitter thing that he's from Santo Domingo, which I think is in the Dominican Republic, isn't it?
Where there's a bunch of problems with the Clinton Foundation. So, Hey, Angel, how much do you know about the Clinton Foundation in Santo Domingo? But anyway.
But he's also friends with the Podfather. That's not good.
That's never good.
No.
And my point, though, is that guys like that, take Umar Abedin, even Chelsea as an example. You're a young kid, you're 22, you're 23, and you start hanging around with former presidents and royalty, and you get these cushy jobs, and you see how you can begin to think that you're invulnerable, that they're never going to get Bill Clinton, they're never going to get you're wasting your time. I know, I've seen the Clintons off. I can't tell you everything I know, but I've seen. And that is not always the way things work. I mean, this unregulated globalism bullshit has run its course now. People around the world are, tearing up the script and say, we're not doing this anymore. And the cool kids are actually not protecting the Clintons. The cool kids are running from the Clintons.
Well, the smartest thing that Angel could do right now would be testify against them and get out in front of this thing, rather than sticking with the losing horse. But whatever, we'll let him make up his own mind. Well, Charles, with that, I think we are wrapping up our 200th episode, our first full HD broadcast at higher bit rate with improved 24-bit audio. It's a plethora of technological improvements. And, it's important that people who watch the show and want to see the show continue become sponsors by going to subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth and become a monthly sponsor. You're going to get access to a whole array of programs that you can only get. They're exclusive to the sponsors. You mentioned Siberia. The CEO of Subscribe Stars from Siberia.
There you go.
Doesn't live there anymore, but he was born there. And you know what, everybody, I don't know anything about Siberia. I guess it's really cold, but Subscribe Star is pretty good. A lot of viewers who were unhappy with Patreon have transitioned over to Subscribe Star, and they're telling me that it's working better for them. I've checked out both, and I think they both work well, but if whatever, people use different browsers, different computers, and so you might have to try it out and see what works best for you. But we really do appreciate all the sponsors and encourage people who've been watching us today to become a sponsor. We've got people congratulating us on 200 shows. Definitely give me your feedback on the sound, the upgraded picture. Some people are saying that they're not able to stream the show smoothly because at this extended quality with the higher bit rate, if someone has a very low speed internet connection, we may now be exceeding the quality. So you're going to want to look into the settings on YouTube where you can turn it down and all that sort of stuff. But Charles, thanks again for another excellent broadcast. 200 broadcasts in the can. We'll be back with the 201st very soon. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great night.